Welcome to the Runna Podcast. I'm Ben, head coach.
And I'm Anya, international marathon runner, and we're proud to be the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide.
We'll be bringing insightful conversation with truly inspirational guests, as well as running tips and tricks for runners of all abilities.
Today on the podcast, we have Rob Dalto, who shares his running journey on social media and has recently completed all now 7 of the world major marathons in honour of his late father. He's a huge community builder here in New York and has founded Bronx Spurters Run Club, which aims to support underprivileged athletes in New York City. You'll really love this episode.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Hello. Good. I like the way that you opened the show. We had to do a clap for that we're starting the scene. We actually start every week. We've got a practice. I've got a run club up in the Bronx, so we start with clap once if you could hear my voice, clap twice if you could hear my voice, and that's how we start our team practice. So it kind of got me hyped up.
Do you want to clap twice to check you're ready? Okay, great, fantastic. Ready. So I guess to kick off, we would love to know what got you into running and moving your body in day one, and what was day one in your sporting life?
Day one of sporting life, as it relates to running, freshman year of high school, I decided to join the cross country team. And I was horrible at it. And I couldn't really tell you why I joined other than wanting to do something outside of school on the day-to-day. But I fell in love with the team and pursued it. High school, college, I was never any good. And then later in life, actually I moved to London for work and started doing marathons as a way to see cities. And so I did like a whole bunch of runs around Europe, a bunch of the big ones over there. I did Paris, Stockholm, Rome, Reykjavik, like a whole handful, Athens. And then a couple years later, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he had seen my sister and I starting to participate in marathons. We ran New York City Marathon, my sister and I, in 2015. And my dad loved watching us race. And when he became sick, we decided that we were going to go on the journey to do the Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star journey and take him along for the journey as long as he could. He didn't make it too much longer, but that journey culminated last year. We had to finish up Tokyo and London, and somehow along the way, I ended up signed up for all 6 of the majors last year. I'd qualified for Boston. We've got this great 9+1 program here in New York, qualified for Chicago. And when we got to Tokyo at the beginning of the year, I just kind of went out of my comfort zone and started going to more run clubs and more of the activations that you have in the running community, and just got really inspired by all the people around me. It was the first time I really realized, hey, everybody in these races has an incredibly compelling story. They've all gone to great bounds and reaches to go run a marathon, wherever in the world. And it kind of turned into this new season of running for me that became much more about community, much more about those around me, and becoming a fulfilling journey for myself, and also helping kind of amplify the stories and voice of others.
And so that led to this year, where you've now ran all 6 of the majors in 1 year.
Yes. So last year I ended up running all 6 in 1 year, and was thinking about, hey, what do you do next? Where do you go from here? And it's kind of interesting. Oftentimes people think like, hey, you got to do something bigger or better. It's like, what's the next? Somebody's like, surely you're gonna go run in all 50 states, right? I don't know about that. But what felt right to me was setting a big challenge for myself. My goal was to run all 6 of the majors this year, and Sydney, because I had a feeling it might become the 7th, and try to do them all under 3 hours, which would be like a huge personal challenge for me. I'd run under 3 hours a couple times, never more than once in a year, but set out to try to do it 7 times this year. And part of the reason behind wanting to go back to the majors was you just meet such inspiring people there. And so at every race, aside from my own, what I was trying to accomplish individually, I would seek out individuals who had really compelling stories and just help give them a platform for their voice to be amplified and share that out to the world.
Amazing. And how did you get on? I guess 7 marathons trying to run under 3 hours is crazy, especially given how many are in quick succession. How's this year gone?
Yeah, that's part of the journey and part of what's crazy. I've always really enjoyed getting dialed into the real nuance of running, both, fueling, training, how to execute a strong race, looking at all the factors. And I mean, my personal best is 2:56. So we're talking about a very small margin of error to actually get under 3 hours. So every race time, and every race week, and in, as you said, each of the small seasons, because there's basically like a window in the spring and a window in the fall where you're going after these things, I'd literally be adjusting my training based on, hey, the weather looks really good. It's going to take everything, but I could do a little bit more volume this week because I'm going to need that, for the race 3 weeks down the road. So I really got dialed into all the details along the way, but it was really, really close in the spring. The last one of the spring season is London. Mm-hmm. I ran 2:59:45. I was literally sprinting down the mall to sneak under 3 hours. So each race was a journey. I successfully accomplished the goal for the first 5. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to Chicago, fell a little bit short. And so the last 2 came a few minutes over 3 hours. But having only done never more than 1 sub-3 in a year, being able to do 5 was, it's honestly, I look back on that, I'm just super proud of that.
No, as you should be. But the fact that you still then came along to do New York and still like pushed yourself that far, and you've still been able to tell all the amazing stories that you were talking about, surely is that why you do it, like, ultimately? Because even though you didn't get the time, you're still sharing these stories and you're still challenging yourself. Like, the time's almost irrelevant. It's like what you're doing beyond that.
Yeah, I certainly, when you get, I made it pretty far. So having gotten through 5, I was like, wow, like this is crazy. I might actually do this thing. But to your point, it's about so much more than just the times. And this is something I preach, and I truly believe it. Like when I finished, I was actually not disappointed to have fallen short on the goal, because I genuinely felt so blessed with everything that had come my way throughout the process and so fulfilled by the journey. And that's something that I believe strongly in, having in previous seasons of running in my own journey been so hyper focused on a result that I kind of lost sight of everything going on around me. So I was almost happy to be able to show like, hey, this is okay, because it's about so much more than this, and give folks a lens that, hey, if you're so narrowly focused on the outcome, you might be missing things that could really fulfill you on your journey, and like just the personal growth that comes with that.
I guess you mentioned before, almost like you complete a goal, then you need to there's a temptation to try and one up the goal and push things further. Have you thought about what you want to do next, or are you wanting to put your feet up and relax for a little bit, or like, and having the pressure of 7 marathons with really crazy impressive times for all 7 changed your love of running this year at all?
Yeah, a couple perspectives on it. So for one, and I was in the same position last year when I finished thinking about like, what do I do next? I'm in this really great position where I get to do what I love, and I get to do what fulfills me, because this is only one lens of my life. So for now, I'm resting and thinking about how can I have the biggest impact. That's how I thought about this year, was what can have the biggest impact on the community and others. And I knew that was the answer to that was being back, going through the Abbott World Marathon Majors, because it's the greatest platform in endurance running, kind of like within our space. So adding a challenge to it just helped kind of amplify that journey. Mm-hmm. But when I look to next year, it's all going to be about how can I have the biggest impact. And even when I thought about this year, the goal of the times was just one avenue. Last year, I started co-founded a nonprofit run club up in the Bronx called the Bronx Spurters. And our mission is to build a strong Bronx community through running, but create opportunities through the sport. And we set a goal to raise $100,000 this year. And we raised $105,000 by the time we got to the marathon. And we gave out $60,000 in scholarships to academic scholarships for youth in the Bronx to smooth their transition off to college. And so that accomplishment is probably more impactful than anything I was able to do on the roads. And then being able to, inspire folks and help them build their own discipline and enhance their journeys along the way. It's like, it's a win-win.
That's insane. That's so much more than a run club. Is that why you do your social media as well, just to like inspire? It kind of goes both ways. Like, it's crazy when people come up to me and they're like, you inspire me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so crazy to hear. Like, because I'm just doing things that I've done for a long time. I just never shared it, and there's a lot of other people, by the way, of course, who go out and they work hard every day and they train and they want to get the most out of themselves. So being able to hear that and know that there are people that are being inspired by the journey is incredibly fulfilling. And then that juices me up, because I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are feeling inspired. Like, I'm hyped up now. Like, how cool is that?
And so it's really this like amazing, like positively reinforcing snowball that helps others and then like helps me as well. And like my own growth and my own development and my own perspectives. So it's been a really fulfilling journey.
And I guess you're balancing all of your running the non-profit with a full-time career.
Yes.
Tell us about that, and how do you manage to make it all work?
It's just 7 days a week, honestly. Like that's just what it is. Like it's getting up every morning and training, working all day, doing the administration for the run club, and then creating content. So it's a lot of context switching, and then on the weekends, like I'll make content for the week ahead and you drip that out throughout the week. And the good news is I love this stuff, and so it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. I'm excited to do it, so make it all work. But I am ready for a little break after a long season.
Nice. Well, I think you deserve it, especially after everything that you've put your body through this year. I guess before we started recording, we were chatting about your first marathon. So you obviously said that you enjoyed kind of exploring all of these amazing marathons in Europe. But yeah, tell us about your first marathon, and was it a marathon?
Yeah, so coming out of college, I did a lot of triathlon, and the whole reason I got into triathlon was because in both high school, college, I was always injured. So while I was trying to be a runner, I'd get injured and then I had to be on the bike, and then I'd get injured again and I couldn't even bike, so I started swimming. And I was like, well, I may as well put these all together and do a triathlon. And so I did a couple sprint triathlons. There's this fun race here, the New York City Triathlon. You swim in the Hudson River. It's a little bit dodgy, but...
I asked if you could swim in that, and I was told no.
Well, there's like one...
Would you recommend the triathlon?
The triathlon's been plagued with lots of challenges. It's usually in the summer. If you ask me what's the hottest day in New York in the summer, it's whatever day they've scheduled the New York City Triathlon. The river's a bit questionable, but it's a great race. I've done it 10 times. But it was one of those things, I just woke up one day and I said, you know what? I want to do an Ironman. I think I could do it. And I signed up, having never run a marathon, having never done a half Ironman. And for those who aren't familiar with the Ironman distance, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then you go and run a marathon. And of course, because you have to swim and bike, Ironman are always held in relatively warm seasons. So it's not like it's a cool day. Usually it's a warmer day than you'd get for just a traditional marathon event. So yeah, I ended up signing up for an Ironman, and the first time I ever did 26.2 miles was finishing off an Ironman up in Canada in Mont-Tremblant.
That's insane.
I think I had a very similar journey, which is that I enjoyed doing a few sprint distance triathlons and then thought, I like triathlons, Googled the hardest thing around, and it was an Ironman, and went from sprint to full Ironman.
So you get it.
Although
how was that experience?
I did complete 2 marathons before the start line.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, for you, getting off the bike, what was it in you that meant that you knew you could run the full marathon? Especially given the history of injuries and everything else, maybe.
Well, that day I certainly didn't know what it was going to take to go to the marathon, because it's you're in uncharted. You experienced it as well. You're in uncharted territory,
yeah.
And so you learn a lot of things. But I'm curious if you'd agree. I thought that was one of the best days of my life at that stage. The events that they put on are absolutely incredible, and I mean, just like the marathon, like the New York City Marathon that we completed yesterday. People have gone to such great lengths to be there, to participate there, that the community is so powerful, so uplifting, positive, that it kind of, no matter how you perform, you leave there just feeling really, really fulfilled and grateful. And I had my family out supporting. They were awesome. And it also helps when you beat your goal. So that happened.
So what was the goal?
At the time, so the goal was 12 hours, and I did 11:38.
Gosh, I think we have such similar lives. My goal was sub 12 as well, and narrowly beat that as well. So very fun day. And you did the Ironman. Did it make you want to do another one? Because you said it was doing the greatest day.
Yeah, I did. I was like, this was such a great event. I would love to do one again. I also appreciated the sacrifice that went into training for it, and knew that when I do it again, it's got to be at a time where I am fully committed to doing the training. Because for that type of event, I don't believe there's any sense in half doing it. If you're committing 15, 20, or 20 plus hours a week to that type of training, I just want to make sure I'm really all in for it and like really have the juice to do it. And I haven't felt that yet, but I might one day.
And so when was the Ironman?
That was 2012.
Okay. Wow. So
or 2013.
So you've had
10 years
had
ago.
Plenty of time to now do a lot of marathons since.
Yeah.
Do you find a marathon easier than a triathlon?
I felt great finishing the triathlons. Actually, I typically do. I think what's really different for me in endurance running versus triathlon is it's much easier to make that a really social training experience. I find the journey much more fulfilling. Being able to go to run clubs and have more training partners. I found it hard in triathlon with the time commitment that you had to do to be social in training for it. Swimming, I find to be quite isolating. Biking, I often found myself going alone because it's extra time I didn't have to go, ride for 30 minutes to go meet the bike group, to go then on a long ride and then bike back from that. So I found it a bit more isolating. So what I enjoy about marathon training is like being able to do it with other people the whole way round. And what I found to be so meaningful for me in the journey is if I go to a race and I've got other friends participating as well, regardless of my outcome, if they're successful, like it just feels good. Like it's shared wins. And now if we all achieve our goal, amazing. But you're wrapped up in more success than just your own. And I find that to be super fulfilling.
I guess that's why you set up Bronx Spurters. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like, how big is that? What is that doing for the community around here?
Yeah. So last year after I had this like inspiring spring, I was doing a bit for literally like TikTok, and I was in Central Park. I would stand at the finish line. They've got a plaque right there in Central Park where the finish line is. And it said, hey, the sign just said, wave if you're running the New York City Marathon. And anybody who stopped, I would just ask them, what do you need to do? What's your goal? And what's the one thing you need to do to achieve it? And I would see if I could help them in some way, support them on their journey, whether it was better fueling or training, whatever it was. I was like, let's just go figure this thing out. And I met this guy, Shaq Roberts. He just rolled up, complete stranger, and he needed help with his fueling. I was injured at the time, so we went for a 2-hour long run. I brought him all this fuel, tried different stuff. Let's see what works for you. And we got talking. And he grew up in the Bronx, and he felt like he wished that he had more support and mentorship, wanting to be a runner in the Bronx growing up. And so we were both like, what? Let's see what we can do. And so we started showing up to the Joseph Yancey track, which is actually where New York Roadrunners was founded back in the day. There's a ton of running history there. And we would just go work out, and we'd see people run around and say, hey, we're working out. Do you want to jump in with us? And every single person we asked said yes. And it was like the most shocking thing ever, because first off, if you ever told me I'd be working out at the track in front of Yankee Stadium, I'd be like, you've got to be joking me. It's a very diverse neighborhood. I would never have expected to find myself there along with Shaq. And I was just so impressed with the community that exists there and how much interest there was for a sense of belonging and community among all these people that were showing up individually. And each week we just started adding people. And we had these kids who just recently graduated from high school. And the first guy, Isaiah, he was heading off to college. And the day before he was meant to go, he was like, oh, actually, I'm staying in New York for the fall. And we're like, what's going on? What do you mean? Turned out his finances fell through, couldn't put the money together for housing. And that's when we realized we had a bigger purpose to serve. So we filed to become a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were able to give him a scholarship last year, $3,000 scholarship, which we basically bootstrapped. We did it. We presented at our shakeout run ahead of the New York City Marathon. And then we said, okay, what's next? And so we said, next year, let's raise 20,000. And then we said, no, let's make it 50. And we said, no, let's make it 100,000. Like, if we're going to make a difference, we have to set audacious goals. And we said, and let's get it done by the marathon. And so last week before the marathon, we hosted our shakeout run, and we announced that we had raised $105,000, and we gave out another 30,000 in scholarships. We gave out 30 this summer as well. So since this time last year, we raised $100,000 and gave out 60,000 scholarships for kids who were in this transition to college, to make sure that that's a smooth transition for them, because it's just so important for life trajectory that is a smooth departure from high school into college, before they start their careers.
So it's so inspiring.
That is absolutely amazing. And so have you got big plans for the Run Club next year, like big audacious goals? Like, how do you see things going from here? And what do you want to take it to?
Yeah, we've been so fortunate to have incredible support we've like New Balance has helped us with a lot of things. New York Road Runners has helped us with a lot of things, and we've been able to build a really strong community. We've got sort of two goals. One is just to become an actual like pillar in the community. Like we want to be there to stay. We want to be able to, we want to create opportunities through sport. So running is going to be a centerpiece of what we do, but it's not going to be the only way that we're able to contribute to the community. And we, in terms of where we want to go next, next stop would be $1 million. We know that $1 million would have a big impact on the community, and so that's our next goal in terms of like financial goals.
But you also, sorry,
You go.
I was going to say, but you really help these people financially, but also with their performance and with their running. I know, like from looking at your social media, you love the scientific side of training. And you like, as you said, like helping a guy with his fueling, like you make your own gels and things. What is like optimal training to you, and how are you helping these people with their training?
Yeah, so I mean, this is where I've just got a couple pillars of like what I like to do. I've always found it really. I was never the best athlete. Mm-hmm. It took me, after 9 marathons, and this is totally respectable time, of course. After 9 marathons, my personal best was 3 hours and 55 minutes. Now I've gotten that down by another hour, and I'm down under 3 hours, and I've qualified and participated in the Boston Marathon a number of times. But it's important to realize, like, getting the most out of yourself can take a while, and a big part of what I want to demonstrate is like success doesn't come overnight, and you can actually really make big gains over time if you're really committed to it and you really want to learn a lot and apply the best data and science. And so, having never been the best athlete, I always looked at how can I get 1 or 2% better doing this or that or the other thing. And that came into play in learning about the science around strength training, about how do you not just go out and run aimlessly every day, but put together a structured plan that's right for you personally. And fueling as a huge thing, not just in racing, but also in your day-to-day training. So having been able to be a student of that, go through the trials and errors of that, and go on a journey. Now, yesterday was completing my 30th marathon, and like just multiple times applying that learning, being able to share that wisdom and experience and do it in a relatable way, no matter where somebody's at in their journey. I'm just glad it adds value for folks. That's something that can contribute to their own development.
Just me being completely nosy because I'm fascinated. How do you make your own gels, and why do you make your own gels?
It looks like a lab in my apartment at times. Like I joke, people call me Heisenberg if anybody's ever watched Breaking Bad, and they're cooking up something very different in their lab, but it doesn't look too dissimilar. I've got like a beaker set and the scales and a hot plate and like there's white powder everywhere. It looks super sketchy. But I looked online. Look, there's 2 reasons why I did it. One, I found that I was under fueling because I didn't want to pay for gels. Like I love Morton gels. They're like $4 a pop. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm under fueling because these things are so expensive. And then you look at the back of the package, there's 5 ingredients in it. And it's, mostly sugar. I'm like, why is this $4? This can't be right. And I realized like, hey, I could make this myself for a fraction of the price. And so 1, it's fun. 2, I get to control very specifically what I'm putting into my body. And then 3, it's way cheaper. And then so because I have access to it, I'm like, well, now I'm not going to not take a gel because I'm 2/3 of my way into my run and I say screw it instead of just taking that extra gel. Because the reality is we're training every single day. If you are properly fueling on every single run, you're recovering faster. If you recover 5% better today and 5% better tomorrow, the compound gains of taking care of yourself when it comes to hitting your long-term goal is immense. Yeah. And so realizing that I was neglecting that, this was a measure I could take to improve it.
So your homemade gels, like what do you put them in? Because obviously it's quite handy in a gel, you rip off the top and squeeze it in your mouth and off you go. Like what do you put them in, and do they taste nice?
Yeah, so I just buy in bulk this sachets online. So I just did some research, and anybody who's manufacturing gels is ordering their sachets from somewhere. So yeah, I just found ones that I really like, these nice matte black ones. I actually kind of got them custom printed. It says Pursuit on them because my handle is Pursuit of Performance. And then a heat sealer, and just heat seal it in the back. Now it's it's a home pressed heat sealer, not like the professional one. So you look at it, you're like, oh, the edge might be off. but it completely does the job. And then what I put in them, I usually do, there's 3 primary ingredients of any of the gels on the market: glucose, fructose, maltodextrin. In terms of the sugar sources, I generally go with glucose and fructose, largely for taste. I just love that sweetness and consistency. And then you can mess with the flavors however you want. So sometimes I'll put like dehydrated raspberry in there, just like a really natural flavor source, or sometimes mango with a little bit of citric acid, and it's kind of like a spicy mango margarita flavor. So you can have some fun with it, but I generally keep it pretty simple. And olive gels, yesterday at the race, I had 10 of my own gels, all homemade, literally 2 ingredients: glucose, fructose. I mean, 3 if you include water. But it's quite simple.
We should have got you to bring some along, and we could have done some blind tasting.
Oh my God, yeah.
Could have done, yeah.
That's one for another day.
I had one last question. I don't know if you have any more to add. So obviously we've just done New York Marathon, and that was the last of your majors. How did it feel to finish off all of that? And do you have a favourite moment of the 7 Majors challenge?
Oh man, so many. Like, honestly, I get like a little emotional just like thinking about it. Like, I was on a panel on Saturday and somebody was asking like, what do you any advice, or what are you thinking about ahead of the New York City Marathon? And I think we just have to realize, like, it's so easy to get stuck in the minutia of like the moment and all those things, but like the New York City Marathon is a day that thousands of people will say was the best day of their life. And like we all had a piece of that. We were around for the best day of thousands of people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
That is.
And whether you're participating or spectating, you're spectating, and like the people next to you are going crazy because they're cheering for their person, watching them have the best day of their life. Like, it's just an event that like it's so much bigger than just like running itself. And it's something that I've appreciated, like going through this journey and meeting so many people along the way, and just seeing like the reasons that they're running, their purpose, what they're trying to achieve, what they're overcoming. So there's just so many moments that will like stick with me, mostly the people I've met along the way. Just incredible. I just like feel blessed to have met people who aren't well known in particular. Like I go out of my way to find the stories that I think need a megaphone and deserve to be amplified, versus might already have a spotlight on them. And like the connection and like what I've gained just personally by meeting people who've had some of these crazy experiences is just like incredible.
Wow. I guess so. You said you did a bunch of exciting marathons before doing the majors. From what you've just said, I have a feeling that your answer is going to be New York. Do you have a favorite marathon?
Yeah, it's the New York City Marathon. And I don't say that, I don't come from that as like hey, I'm from New York and I have to say it's New York. I actually wanted it to be Boston because I always have a lot of fun in Boston, and London's great as well. They're like all right up there. But when you hit the streets of New York and you get into Brooklyn, I mean, you were out there.
It was amazing.
You were out there. Like, it's crazy.
So does that mean for you the thing that matters is the atmosphere? It's not the scenery. It's not where you are. It's the noise. It's the atmosphere. Or is it all of that adding in together?
I think the atmosphere, so it's, I think of it as like an equation. It's probably like 6 things. There's like logistics, course, experience. Like, there's a bunch of things that play into it. I think atmosphere probably ends up driving the biggest weighting, because I think the atmosphere is what, they say it's like when you meet somebody, it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. I think that atmosphere is like the biggest needle mover in terms of like the overall experience.
I just thought it was the scale of the operation. Like, running over that first bridge, you've got an entire, probably like 10 lane wide bridge of cars with humans running fast the entire way up the bridge, where like you almost have to like squeeze through people, it's so busy. And then there's planes and helicopters either side, a helicopter hovering at the top of the bridge on the far side. It really was like as if you're in some kind of movie.
It's crazy. And it's even beyond that. Like, it hit me in the morning. We took the bus down. I've taken the ferry in the past. It was the first time I took a bus. And it's 5 a.m. We're taking a bus. We're cutting over to the east side to the FDR Drive. And you've got hundreds of police officers and volunteers who are directing traffic for the buses that are coming from all parts of Midtown. You've got a huge crew orchestrating the ferries from downtown over to Staten Island, which has an entirely different logistics system for the buses over there. So just even getting to the start is crazy. There's thousands of people even outside of just the race itself that are like making this giant machine work. And then we finish, And like you've got 20 blocks of people going out Central Park West, which extends far beyond the course. So, I mean, the operation that is the New York City Marathon is just grand.
Well,
It's
I mean,
just
Anu and I
spectacular.
traveled to the start together, and I think we were both baffled as to the fact that like the scale of the
Yeah.
operation and how different it is to most marathons, where you normally like start and finish 100 meters from where you start.
Yeah.
And then you can pick up your bag and get on with your day. And that was not the case. I mean, we set off from our apartment at 4:30. And we're not starting until 9:10, which is wild.
It's
when you think
wild.
about it.
It's
It is.
wild.
So since yesterday, do you feel satisfied, or are you going to give sub 3, 7 miles and 7 marathons another go?
I'm super satisfied. Before this year, I'd never done more than one sub 3 marathon in a year. So to do 5, like I reflect on that. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Of course, I wanted to get all 7 after getting 5, but we talked about some of the things that make this journey so much more impactful. And honestly, it's even a good reminder for me to remember, like, you never want to get to the end of a race and let the outcome of it determine your mood. Like, because if you did, then you didn't focus enough on the journey. And I've had people message me sometimes. I'm glad I don't get too many messages like this where they're just like, I hate training, and I want to run a marathon like this, but I hate training. It's like, I encourage us all to think differently about it. And like, you're not going to wake up every single day, pop out of bed, yeah, like, let's get this. You're never going to feel like that every single day, but you should be excited about getting out there a couple days a week. You should be excited about who you're training with. You should be excited about the type of run you're doing. If you're not enjoying the journey, like, the outcome, the high won't be as high and the low is going to be quite low. So I'm incredibly satisfied with it. For next year, do I want to chase something somewhere? I don't know. I mean, I know I'll be out there for the spring marathons. I'm definitely going to want to go back to Sydney and get the 7th star. But similar to this year, I just want to figure out how can I have the biggest impact on the community. I was very blessed to feel like I've gained so much from this sport that having an impact is what fulfills me. And if that takes me through the 7 again, amazing. If it takes me on a different journey, so be it.
Wow. Well, sounds amazing, and huge good luck for whatever next year entails. We're going to segue off to Steph for our coaching tip of the week.
My top tip today is on the importance of mobility work. Mobility work is not us runners' favourite thing to do, but it will really help loosen off any tight areas and improve your flexibility. This week, whilst you're watching TV, just try 10 minutes of strength and conditioning 2 to 3 times, and you'll really feel the benefits going into your next session.
Thank you so much for that, Steph. I'm going to bring us back with our discussion for the week from one of our runners. I wanted to ask, or this runner wanted to ask, they always seem to hit the wall in a marathon, and they think that's down to fueling. Should they be eating before, during, and after their races?
Do you want to go first?
Well, the short answer is yes, you should be eating before, during, and after your race. I'll give you a little bit of a longer answer, though, and I'll try not to get too nerdy. I'm pretty deep in the science on this, and I've learned a lot of things over the last 2 years on this about eating before the race and then what you can do during the race. Fun fact, your body can make productive use of 100 grams of carbohydrates per hour, so long as your tummy can take it. That's the equivalent of like 4 gels per hour. Now, I think on the labels and what people talk about is a much lower number than that, but I would encourage everyone to look at how much they're consuming an hour and see if they could take that up a notch. I found a sweet spot at 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour during my runs, and since I've implemented that, I've never felt better finishing a race.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that as well, whereby, dude, I think when I first got into running, it would be have a gel or whatever, and that was meant to be this like rocket fuel thing, and never really understood much more of it. And when you realize that, like you said, it's kind of like 60 to 100 grams is kind of the numbers that lots of the brands and lots of the nutritionists will kind of like recommend. And obviously it depends what your stomach is used to and what you can tolerate, and we shouldn't go in necessarily at 100 grams, otherwise it might make the food come out the other end, or
Absolutely.
or one of either end. But yeah, like having 4 gels an hour seems crazy. I like to avoid having to carry too many gels. Otherwise, if you're carrying 4 gels an hour and you're going to do a 3-hour marathon, which is a relatively quick marathon, that's 12 gels. That's a lot to carry. So I normally go for the slightly like denser gels. So I'll go for one that's got like 40 grams of carbs, and go for the SAS beta fuel gels, which is what I prefer personally. But yeah, like I'll have one of them every like 30 or 40 minutes, which means I'm closer to the kind of upper end of that 60 to 100 gram window. So yeah, I think, very much something that's worth practicing and testing and training. Obviously, it's an expensive piece of kit, I guess, and obviously where probably most people don't have the time or the expertise to build their own. But at the same time, we do need to practice fueling well, so that way when it comes to racing and running beyond the distances that we'll often cover in training, that we then can go that much further. And I guess like a big part of it as well is when it comes to hitting the wall, which I guess like, I mean, let's say it's 20 miles, 22 miles, wherever like someone wants to, or feels this point, it is the distance relatively where training runs finish. Do you know, I think like most training plans will take you up to 22 miles or up to 34, 35K. And that last bit, I almost think comes down to the psychological extra piece that you get from the marathon. And that's the atmosphere. That's the crowd cheering you on. And ultimately it does damage our body. There's a reason why like how hard it's been for you this year doing 7 marathons is because going that far is so tough on the body. And almost the way to get through the wall is to have the quality of training behind you, make sure you fueled well to it, but then to be strong psychologically and keep pushing through, visualize the finish, visualize how excited you're going to be at the end, soak up the crowd to really push through. But it's never going to be easy. And I guess that like fact of it being hard is then what makes it so satisfying when you get to the end.
Yeah, and I think you hit a really good point there on the mental side. There is science that shows that attitude and your mentality and positive mantras and speaking to yourself positively will have an impact in those moments as well. So it's a good call out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to come in with our this or that. So we're going to give you 2 probably relatively silly options.
Okay.
And you've got to pick which one is the least bad, I would say. So would you rather fuel in all of your marathons or all of your runs from now on with gels tasting of jalapeno or gels tasting of blue cheese?
Oh, I love blue cheese. I'm going for a steak dinner tonight. I'm going to have a blue cheese wedge salad with bacon. So just give me that blue cheese.
And you think blue cheese would go well with the sugary taste?
No, not at all.
But less bad than jalapeno?
Well, the jalapenos are going to run into different issues.
So would you...
And lactose is also an issue.
Would you rather on the start line of a marathon, a big spicy chili or a glass of warm milk?
Oh, warm milk. Milk
You really are leaning to the milky cheesy
Milk is
vibe.
good fuel, actually. So I don't know if you ever see Jeremy Miller. He'll do an ultra marathon and drink a gallon of milk along the way. Yeah, and it works. And he's got the milk coming down his chin. It's not. But go, Jeremy.
Wow, that'd be a good go. I mean, I'll try it out. I like chocolate milk, so
even better. So then you're going to get some extra sugars in there. So you're good to go.
I'm doing...
You're doing jalapeno
jalapenos.
gels.
Well, I saw people genuinely in New York Marathon handing out pickles. And I didn't know why at the time. I still actually don't know why at the time. I feel like that's the same.
Thought we were about to learn something.
No, but I feel like that's the same. It's like acidic, I don't know, marinate.
Well, I guess you store pickles in brine, which is salty water. So maybe that's
it.
like giving
the
in some
electrolytes.
electrolytes.
Yeah.
Probably like an old-fashioned electrolyte.
They market. There's literally a brand called Pickle Juice, which is marketed to runners, and it is just pickle juice.
Oh,
and you're
really?
meant to have instead of having Element or something else, just have pickle juice.
Well, I feel like it's jalapeno juice then.
Yeah. I don't think you get the electrolytes from it. You just get the spice.
Yeah. I think I'm going to stick with normal gels over blue cheese or jalapeno. But if I had to pick, God, I don't know what I would. I think I'd go jalapeno, but I'm not very good with spice.
By the way, did we clarify, is this like the essence of jalapeno and the essence of blue cheese, or is this like a blue cheese gel?
No,
I'm kind of imagining like the chunky blue cheese kind of coming out.
I think the flavour. Like,
just the flavor.
It's the texture of gel, but it's the flavour of jalapeno or blue cheese.
Imagine though if it was a gel of blue cheese, like chunky blue cheese.
Well, you had to like squeeze blue cheese
and it comes out the top.
You've got to warm it up in your pocket just to get it squeezy out the jar.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, one of those late mile ones sitting on the bum for 2 hours. Yeah.
And what's the alternative then? You just chew a jalapeno.
Crunchy.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Maybe slightly less silly, but still not that much better. Would you rather never ever be able to post your runs on Strava, or have to do all of your running without headphones? So no music.
Running without headphones. I'm a big supporter of not wearing headphones when you run. But that's also because here in New York, there's so many people to run with, and I'm constantly out with people. So you could argue that's like having a headphone because you're always kind of listening to somebody speak. But in particular on a race like yesterday, I think it's just it's so great, the ambiance, the environment we have around us, to soak that in versus, have headphones in and get in the zone.
I mean, it's an easy pick for me. I'm going no headphones as well.
Yeah, no headphones.
Yeah. There we are. Right, we're
easy
agreed
one.
on that
That
one,
was easy
at
one.
least. Okay, I don't know. I think you'll be able to tell that Anya came up with these and not me for
I
this
know
next
why I
one.
chose this one.
Do you want to go for it?
I can do. Would you rather train for your next marathon in heels or train normally and wear heels for the race?
This is crazy because
Do you want to tell me the backstory?
Well,
to
I
it?
think you're about to.
well,
No, I just saw it on your
this?
Instagram.
Yeah.
I saw it on your Instagram.
So this absolute legend, Curtis Hargrove, who lives up in Canada, has done some amazing things for others. I mean, this guy is literally like the definition of selfless service for others. He's run across Canada before. He's done all sorts of crazy challenges, and I came across him in the lead up to the Chicago Marathon, and he ran the Chicago Marathon in high heels in support of a women's center to provide protection for folks suffering from domestic violence situations. And I met him in the morning. We finally got to rendezvous in the corrals the morning of. I helped him tape his high heels on. These are legit high heels. My mom's here. These are like the high heels I remember seeing like at the bottom of the closet when I was growing up. These are like OG high heels, pointy toes, thin, thin thing on the bottom.
I can't imagine that actually like women's high heels are probably designed for like men's feet, that he's probably squishing his toes in as well.
Oh, they were so stuffed in there, man. I was looking at it. I was like, this guy is going all in. Like there was nothing about this that was like laying it up. And the one thing he did was because he's done this before, never for a marathon, but he'd done it for a half marathon. He had his buddies weld steel heel onto it because I guess in the past, like the heel had given out.
Yeah.
So it was just absolutely wild. I would not want to train them, so I'd just give it a go on race day. But having seen what he went through, fortunately for an amazing cause, just a truly selfless guy who really deserves a lot of spotlight. It ain't easy either way.
Yeah.
But how would you go?
Well, it's basically, do you want to have one really bad run and like a happy life? Or do you want to have a really shitty life and then one good run? I think I'm going happy life and a shitty run.
Yeah, it's all race in high heels.
Although it would be pretty savage taking on those hills in New York in high heels.
Oh, it's just
Can't imagine.
Maybe actually the high heels make it easier on the uphill because you're basically running on the flat.
Yeah, because you got your toes up. I'll tell you what.
The downhill would be chaos.
Giving even more of a shout out to Curtis on this one. In the Chicago Marathon, over the bridges in the downtown area, it's like graded, like it's like grates.
Oh, so your heel can go in.
For sure. Now they've got like one half of it where they'll put carpet down to protect against that, but like there's risks everywhere for this type of.
Wow. So have you ever ran in high heels?
No.
Okay.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. I've seen him do. Actually, seeing him do it, it just reinforces it's probably not. It remains not on the agenda.
Wow. Do you want to share our embarrassing story of the week?
Yeah.
So for our embarrassing story, if you would like to share your embarrassing running stories, please send them to podcast@runna.com or send us a voice note on Instagram. And Rob, if you've got any embarrassing stories you want to share, you can think them up and share them afterwards.
I haven't listened to this and it's a voice note. So we're going to go for it.
So my embarrassing story, a running story, I had a 7k run to do, so I went out for my run, about 4k in. My belly wasn't feeling good, even though I didn't have any gels, and I thought I could hold it. And I was looking around to see if there was somewhere I could go to squat, but there was people around everywhere finishing work, construction people, like just all sorts, and I couldn't find anywhere, and I was trying to hold it in and I couldn't, and my poo just fell out and I had brand new leggings on and I shit myself running with everyone around me in brand new leggings, and then I found a wine bar nearby, so I went in there and asked if I could use their toilet. So I went in, I had nothing with me but my phone, and I went to the toilet, tried to sort myself out, and then came back out and there was a big queue of 5 people waiting to go into the toilet, and I just had to shamelessly walk out and basically waddle 3k home with pooey leggings on.
Well, there we are, we're back with another poo story.
It was like we've all been in poo situations, but it was the way she said the poo just fell out.
I also thought it was the fact that I thought the story was going somewhere very different, where she said, I just went to the wine bar. I thought she was like, well, this run's gone to shit. I'm now just going to drink my way through this. Well, have you had any incidents during the early days of constructing your own gels? Anything go wrong?
No, not wrong there, but I do have a similar story to hers with a sad ending like that. That started with easy mac and cheese before the run. So, yeah, regrettable times.
That's cheese. You just said you love blue cheese on a run.
You'd think I've learned my lesson.
Yeah. Ben and I have told our poo stories at this podcast.
I've told all the ones that are acceptable for the listeners to hear, and probably more than that, and I think I should stop. Well, we're going to go away with our final questions. So, you've clearly had an amazing journey with your running since running in college, but then I guess also since that first marathon in the Ironman and all the marathons since then. If we could fast forward 10 years, what would you like to achieve in running?
Wow, 10 years from now is so far. I mean, even just thinking a year ago, 2 years ago, if we'd be sitting here having this conversation, having done the things that have happened, I'd tell you I didn't believe it. So 10 years is a long ways away, but I feel really fortunate to be making a tangible impact on the community, to be still achieving my own personal best physically. So I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, it's still possible to be getting the most out of myself physically, leaning into the science, learning and being able to stay at the top of our game for a long time and just have a really marked impact on the community. Don't know what that looks like, but those are kind of the two pillars that I'm going to continue to follow.
Amazing. And our final question, if you could design your dream running race, how far would it be? Where would it be? What food and drink do you get at the finish? And who presents the trophy?
This is a bit of an easy one, having just completed what I would argue is like the best edition of the best race on the planet. So I think it would be a run in New York City, very similar to the New York City Marathon. The thing is, like, the distance, it's like when you've got such good vibes, you kind of want that to go longer, but then there's also this trade-off of like, how far can you go before you run out of steam? So it might be something like the New York City Marathon that hits like a couple other crazy places like Times Square or other places that would be really fun.
So are you extending the course or just rerouting?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's nice we hit all 5 boroughs. I don't know if we could shorten it and still hit all those spots. So it might be
a bit
around
less.
there.
It might be a bit less accessible if it went longer.
That's true. It's true. I don't think we want to go too much longer.
I don't think we need to go into Central Park, out again, and in again.
It's a bit of a tease, isn't it? Especially when you get in there and you think it's going to be flat, and it's not. So that's tough. But I'll tell you who I want handing out the awards. It is Ted Metellus, the race director for the New York City Marathon. I've been very fortunate to see Ted all over the world handing out medals. He's just such an incredible person, incredible leader in the New York community, and he's been doing it for so long. It's just an honor for all of New York City to have him as the race director that we have, and he brings such incredible vibe to this community that we have in New York and all around the world. And there is nothing like getting a finisher award, whether it be a medal or a 6-star, anything, quite like it is getting it from Ted.
Nice. Well, it sounds like a little bit of American patriotism there, where we're basically not changing anything.
We need food. We need food.
Oh, yeah,
exactly right.
What is the food at the finish line as well?
The food will change. The food will change. It won't be an apple and pretzels. It'll be a steak dinner.
Nice.
For everyone.
We all just sit down. We all just sit down on this one big table.
Huge table, and you know how like kind of in the movies they come, it's like the big silver platter, and they like unleash. They reveal it, and just right there for you to have. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, we look forward to you making those suggestions, and then we'll come back next year and we'll enjoy our steak at the finish line.
Let's do it.
But thank you so much for coming and joining us on the podcast and telling your incredible story, and we can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for doing what you do.
Today's podcast was brought to you by Runna. If you want to train for any goal, download the app today, and don't forget you can use the code Runna Podcast for a 2-week free trial.
Whether you enjoyed the episode or not, please like, share, follow, subscribe, do all of that nonsense, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. Wow, you made it all the way to the end of the podcast. And so for all of our loyal listeners, we have a special 15% off all of our Runna merchandise. If you want to look as cool as Anya, then go and use the code MyFastSocks for 15% off all of our Runna merchandise. And thank you again for listening.